Hello and welcome to the Screenplay Lab. I'm your host, Jeff Barker. I am a screenwriter, and today we're going to break down the screenplay Project Hail Mary by Drew Goddard, based on the novel by Andy Weir. And it's really exciting because this is a true blockbuster at the movie theater. Everyone is going to see it, even people who go to one or two movies a year. This is the one they're going to so far. And, it's a novel that I read many years ago. I mean, it's been a long time now. And the screenplay is very good. And so we're going to look word by word through the first 11 pages here and see what we can learn from it, what's unique about it. It's going to be great. All right, let's get to it. So let's look at the title page here, Project Hail Mary. The first thing that jumps out is that there's a colon here in the title, which in the title of the movie, that is not the case. And Drew Goddard, just a couple of things about him. He was born in Houston, grew up in New Mexico. He went to college at the University of Colorado in Boulder. I wonder if he was there at the same time as John August. They're probably about the same age. I know they know each other. He started out in television. He wrote for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, so he was in that universe. And then he moved over to the J.J. Abrams universe with Alias and Lost. And then he started writing some screenplays. Some of his standouts are Cloverfield, which is a really exciting sort of puzzle box sci-fi. World War Z, a blockbuster. The Martian, which was the first Andy Weir adaptation. And then he co-wrote and directed the Cabin in the Woods, which is sort of another puzzle box horror. And up next for him is The Matrix. So he's going to be part of rebooting The Matrix, which is really exciting. So this screenplay is 140 pages, so it's a long one when you all your screenwriting teachers are telling you to keep modern screenplays between 90 and 105 pages if you want someone to read it. Of course, this was an adaptation. He was paid to write it, but 140 pages, 157 minutes of screen time. So that's a minute and 6 seconds per page for this one. All right, so we go to page 1 here, and we start with interior medical bay, close on a man's eyes as they flutter toward consciousness. So close on, we start, the first words of the entire screenplay is a camera direction, telling us that, framing what we're going to see. A comforting voice, all caps, echoes around us. And he uses a colon here to show us that this comforting voice is the voice that we're going to get for dialogue. And so the voice designation for that is, or should I say the dialogue tag for that is voice. And it says, eye movement detected. Go to the action line. It says, the man groans. He's been out for quite some time. So it says the man. So we don't know yet who this is. It's just telling us it's a man. The voice continues. So we have the CONT''D. So Drew uses the standard what comes with the software as far as if the dialogue continues, we get the continued. Some people are taking that out. He leaves it in. And the voice says cognition assessment. What's 2 plus 2? So he's asking a question here. And then we go to the action line. It says, we will come to know the man as Grace. So this is the introduction to the main character of this story. And in this case, he wants to let us know who this person is, or at least identify the person before we go into the dialogue. It goes into the dialogue, and Grace says, "What? Where am I?" And he uses here the ellipses, the ... to separate a thought. Now, I was going through the screenplay. I was trying to figure out, and we'll talk more about this, but he uses the double dash and the ... And sometimes the ... indicates like a trailing off, which is sort of common of what we do. And the dash is more of an immediate, abrupt reveal or interruption, but not always. He uses them interchangeably, actually, quite a bit. But and this is the only construction that I see like this, where he sort of interrupts himself with a ... But in any indication, it's here. And he's lying in some sort of medical bay. So it says some sort of. So he's writing with mystery. He doesn't want us to know yet what's going on as a reader. We're starting. He wants to reveal things to us as they are revealed to the character as much as possible, which is an interesting and powerful way to start a screenplay if you can do it and not be so vague that the reader is confused. That is not the case here because of the strong writing, and also because most people who read the screenplay have a general idea before they get into it of what the setup is, either because it's an adaptation and they've read the book, or they're at least familiar with the book. It goes on to say, various life support tubes connect his body to complicated equipment. So when he uses various life support tubes, he is not wasting a lot of real estate on the page by describing every single tube and how it's connected to the body and what it looks like. He's going to let set design work that out. And for as a reader, all we need to know is that he's connected. You know, he is hooked up. His breath quickens. He grabs at the IV tube in his arm. So we're gaining momentum here. And the voice says, hand movement detective, remain still. I'm going to pause here to see if you've noticed yet in the action lines and in the dialogue, after each period is a double space. So this is old school, goes back to the typewriting days, and I think it's awesome. I like to see it. I don't do it just because, you know, when you do this, you do put yourself at risk of people being very critical of this. There's some people who absolutely hate it, and but this guy's a Hollywood staple. He can do whatever he wants, and you can do whatever you want as well. So if you want a double space your little heart out. It does make it easier to read. It does create more white space on the page, and over 140 pages, it may have cost him a page, or probably 6/8 of a page. Depends on how the lines end on each page, but there it is. That's what he uses. So the voice says, hand movement detective, remain still, and the action line goes on. He doesn't obey. He struggles to rip the tube out of his body. Robotic arms, all caps, descend from the ceiling to prevent him from doing so. The voice continues, remain still. He bats the arms away. He cries out in pain as he tears the tubes free. He rolls out of his bunk and hits the ground with a dull thud. So Drew does a lot of all caps in this screenplay. In this case, he chooses not to use all caps on the thud, which, you know, could be part of a sound design. And then it jumps down to a new action line and it says, he's awake now. And then to another action line. Panic begins to overtake him. His heart starts pounding in all caps. So he is pacing himself, gaining momentum with these action lines, because here, obviously, we could have rolled all three of those action lines into one paragraph, which would have been right at probably 4 lines, maybe 5. Going through here, at least in the first 11 pages, I don't think there's a paragraph more than 4 lines. So he does like to keep his action lines short, which is great. The voice says, full body motion detective, cognition assessment. What's 2 + 2? So we're starting with really simple math. Grace answers him, where am I? So this is always awesome when you don't answer a question directly in a screenplay. And also it adds to the mystery of him trying to figure out who he is, what's going on. All right, he struggles to his feet. The room is dark. There's a pale light is in all caps, at the other end of the corridor. Grace is drawn towards the light. He steps carefully towards ... So, again, talking about the ... This is taking us to a reveal, but rather than it being an abrupt reveal, it's more of a slow, what is it going to be? Sort of building that confusion or mystery. And it is, all caps, a viewing window. I think I remember in the movie where there was he continues to ask him questions, and he gets it wrong. The computer says that's incorrect, adding more tension and drama, but that's not in the screenplay. The big reveal is the viewing window here, and this is on page 2. And as Grace approaches, his breath catches in his throat as he sees. Now here's the double dash. So again, trying to figure out how he's using these interchangeably. This is more of a abrupt reveal. Stars. Next line. Endless. Cold. Next line. He's in outer space. So he uses white space great here to create impact. Again, this could have easily been one line, but he stretched it into 3 lines to add intensity. Stars, endless cold. He's in outer space. In the reflection of the window, we see his eyes widen with recognition. Oh God, I'm in space. And off his sharp intake of breath, double dash, and then we go to a new scene. But let's look at this paragraph here for a second. A lot of stuff going on here. He uses asides a lot in his writing, and there's lots of different ways to do that. Most commonly in screenwriting, we see it done as its own sentence in italics, and he actually does do that a few times. Most commonly, he uses the double dash, sort of like the M dash, to separate a thought, and sometimes he puts it in italics. Sometimes he doesn't. Here he does. Oh God, I'm in space. So this is the big reveal inside Grace's head, and he underlines space to add even more emphasis. And then off his sharp intake of breath, all caps, this is a direction on the scene, we cut to interior Murphy's bar dash flashback. So here he, in the scene heading, uses flashback. At least in the first 11 pages, this is the only time he does it, even though he does go back to this same time period many times. So I think he decided in his choice to use it the first time. So it's very clear when you're reading, okay, we're on the spaceship. Now we're not. Didn't want to add confusion that there might be a Murphy's bar on the ship, because like in Star Trek, there's often a bar on a ship. So that's probably why he made that choice. We begin with the action line. It says, ultra close on a flicking image. So this is a match cut. But rather than do it as a transition, match cut to, he just uses cut to and describes the match cut. Ultra close on his image. Are those ... stars, question mark? No, they're pixels. We're looking at a newscast. So he is putting us in the mind's eye of what we would see if we were watching this as a movie, which is the job of the screenwriter, and describing what we would see and helping us like, oh, what is this? Oh, okay, it's a newscast. Newscast is in all caps. Voice on screen uses the it's not as a parenthetical, he uses it on the actual line of the voice, so that's a choice. It says, we received confirmation about 90 minutes ago that the Arc-Light craft successfully inserted into orbit around Venus, ... And then he tells us where we are. It says, we're in Murphy's bar, all caps. So this is a choice as well. Sometimes in screenwriting, once you've identified a place in the scene heading, you don't go back and put it in the action lines because we've already told you where we're at. He does do that, and he does it a lot, actually. So he's told us we're in Murphy's bar, and then in the action line he says, we're in Murphy's bar. Classic Irish-American pub. For some reason, this place is jam-packed on a Tuesday, and I'd like to point out that Tuesday, that's specificity. That's an interesting choice because it doesn't matter that it's a Tuesday, but he wanted to show, hey, there's a lot of people in this bar for some unknown reason. So he adds Tuesday for emphasis. And then it's and double dash. So here comes a big reveal. When we see double dash at the end of a sentence, we're about to get some important information. Every single person in the bar is glued to the NASA news feed. And then he underlines the whole sentence to further point out this is important. The underlining here all the way across the page can be confusing because he also underlines and bolds his scene headings. So somebody may bump on that and think, is this a scene? But it's obviously not. It's important information. Including grace. So now this puts us in a different time. If you chose not to say flashback in your scene heading, this would reveal, okay, this is a different time because he can't be two places at once. He's at the corner of the bar, sitting alone. He leans forward, straining to hear the feed. On screen, Dr. Brown. So this is something that people ask about quite a bit in screenwriting. When you're revealing something on screen that is on screen, like you're watching a newscast or you're showing someone's computer or showing someone's phone, how do you do it? Well, there's lots of ways to do it. And he actually does it several different ways in this screenplay. But here he all caps, on screen, colon. So he just lets you know, okay, the rest of this is going to be on screen. Dr. Brown, all caps, this is a new character, head of planetary science for NASA, addresses a reporter. It's a reporter in all caps, even though it's not a proper name. From the gallery of the flight control room at JPL. So, this novel and this screenplay is very science heavy, and I think he takes some leaps to hope that you know some things, or maybe you just don't need to know everything at once. JPL is Jet Propulsion Lab. Perhaps that's common knowledge. I didn't know it. Most of the time when we put an acronym in a screenplay, it's already been identified previously, but that's not the case here. Then Dr. Brown says, again, this is on screen, once it has passed through the betrothal line, the arc light will have collected enough material for its onboard analysis lab, ... In this case, the ... most likely means that Dr. Brown continued to talk, but what she said was not as important. Then we have a 3-line paragraph that is basically describing a graphic on the screen. It says, a NASA graphic details the ArcLight spacecraft's orbit. It intersects with a bright red arc, all caps, cutting through the solar system. The label draws our attention, ... So this time, instead of the double dash, we get the colon. So he does these things interchangeably. Sometimes I can figure out why, but I can't here. I think it's just whatever mood he was in when he wrote it, and it stayed that way. The big reveal here is the betrothal line. And the choice he made here, rather than previously, like when he underlined the big reveals, here he just does, he does italics and quotation marks. But it's on screen, so perhaps that's why he made a different choice. The reporter goes on to say here in the dialogue, and what do we hope to learn from this first batch of data? Dr. Brown hesitates, so we've got our parenthetical. And here comes some clever exposition. If I knew what was in the betrothal line, it would sure save us all a lot of trouble. So this starts to tell us a little bit about what's going on, but it's sort of as a joke rather than just straight information. So that's some clever expo. And then it goes on to immediately say his joke. Okay, so Dr. Brown's a woman. I assumed it was female. His joke falls flat. Behind them, the scientists and technicians in the gallery stare up at the main screen. Main screen is all caps. So all this is on screen, and he just set this up by just saying 6/8 of a page earlier, on screen : The mood at JPL seems tense. So here's the JPL again. Dr. Brown, recovering. So here's another parenthetical. He uses a lot of parentheticals, both for indicating how the actor should play the line and also sometimes just for action. if it doesn't want to use it as an action line. ArcLight will collect samples from the line and we'll be able to view them through the internal microscope, double dash. So, I'm not sure why the double dash is there. Maybe because we're interrupting quickly this dialogue to show this next action. Again, it's all on screen though. Behind Dr. Brown, the graphic on the main screen in the flight control room, main screen's on all caps, switches to the ArcLight data feed. It's a grainy image, nothing but black dots on a white background. But as soon as the gallery sees it, double dash, so we're getting another big reveal here, the whole flight control room gasps. Gasp is in all caps. Dr. Brown whips around. That's a good strong verb there, whips. Dr. Brown whips around to look at the view screen. So even on screen, while Dr. Brown's being interviewed, what's going on behind him is drawing his attention. He whips around. Inside the bar, comma, all caps. So now he's taking us off of the camera or off of the news coverage back into the bar. He didn't do this by creating a whole new scene or sub scene heading, mini slug. He could have, but here he just says, in the bar, all caps, the patrons push forward to get a better look at what's happening. So now something's going on behind him. Him, I meaning Dr. Brown. It's drawing his attention on the screen, and now the bar is like, what? What's going on? Grace, he's our main character here, tries to quiet the increasingly alarming bar so he can hear what the newsfeed is saying. Shh. So he opts here for the long ly adverb, increasingly, which makes the sentence a little harder to read, but we get it. And then the shh. So this could be an internal, like I wish everybody would be quiet. It could be him actually hushing the crowd. But it's not dialogue. But on the screen, comma, things have grown more chaotic at JPL. So now we're back on the screen. This time he did not use all caps. He just slipped us back in there. Even the reporter seems to have forgotten his job as everyone stares and points at all caps, that main view screen. And then under that, the black dots are moving. So he did not set up this big reveal with a double dash or a ... He goes straight to it and underlines it. The black dots are moving. Moving is in all caps. The whole thing's underlined. Inside Murphy. So now we're back to the bar. So rather than saying inside the bar, he's found another way to say it. Inside Murphy's, double dash. The bartender looks to Grace as if to say, what the hell is happening? That's in italics. That's an aside to describe a look. I like that. And then we get back to direction on the page, and it says, and Weir close on Grace as he realizes why everyone at NASA is reeling. Oh my God. Here, close on Grace is all caps because it's a camera direction. And then, oh my God, is in an aside. This is like what Grace is thinking. And then we get dialogue from Grace. And this is the exciting exposition. This is like when you're watching the film and you're like, oh, maybe we would say this is the inciting incident. Maybe. Although he already woke up on a ship not knowing who he was. So sort of muddled what the inciting incident is. But anyway, Grace says here is first, this is important dialogue. I think we might be looking at the first evidence of extraterrestrial life. On the screen, all caps. So now we're going back to the screen. So we were in the bar, on the newscast, in the bar, on the newscast, in the bar, on the newscast. I think that's where we're at. So it's back and forth, back and forth. On the screen, colon, as those black dots move with the chaotic consistency of a living organism, ... So here comes another connection or reveal. Cut to, and now we're going to a new scene. Out of the bar. Interior corridor. Now this is a vague subject or scene heading. Corridor where? At a house, in the bar. We're back in the ship, though. So this is probably consistent with how he describes his face later in the screenplay, which is why he put it here. Those static stars. He often starts his action lines with statements, like instead of describing the action, just like, and here it is, those static stars, cold and distant. Grace stands where we left him, so direction on the page. Still fighting panic, struggling to get his bearings. So he does this quite a bit too, where he'll take a sentence and he'll break it up into 3 sentences with each sort of clause as its own sentence. So Grace stands where we left him, period. Still fighting panic, period. Struggling to get his bearings, period. It like really is punchy, boom, boom, boom. Keeps it moving. And it gives the way, so still fighting, okay, and this is a whole other thing to talk about. Still fighting panic and struggling to get his bearings are telling the actor how to play the emotion. Rather than making the person in the scene a puppet, like, still fighting panic. You could say he's, grasping at his shirt, he's grabbing the glass, his knees are trembling. I mean, if those are important things that you really want in this story or in the movie, then yeah, put it in there. But if really you just say, okay, this guy needs to be panicking and confused, then put it in like this and let the actor play it. The voice again, so this is the voice on the ship, says cognition assessment. What's 2 plus? And then we have the double dash. So in this case, that means that the next speaker is cutting them off. Double dash. Grace says 4. Okay, so that was an easy one. So he either knew it before and he was too worked up and distracted, or his brain's getting on board a little bit more. Grace looks around. What is this place? He notices what looks like a hatch on the wall. Hatch is in all caps, so it's important. The voice says, what's the cube root of 8? So now we stepped up our math from basic arithmetic to algebra. Grace, and then his parenthetical here is has to think. So this could have been an action line. Put it in as a parenthetical. He says 2. And, you either know that's correct, or you, by the computer not correcting him, he got it right. He tugs at the hatch. Tugs is a good, strong verb. It doesn't budge. Voice says, to open the hatch, state your name. He opens his mouth to answer, but nothing comes. So he doesn't know his name. And then the dialogue here is, it's ... parenthetical, then it's ... So this is an interesting construction of how to do this dialogue. It's not what's most commonly done, and he doesn't do it again. He does it other ways later on, but this is how he did it here. Then also too, I should point out here that like instead of beat, he puts then. So this is his beat. Anytime he wants to like take a breath, take a pause, he puts then. The next action line right after that is, he doesn't remember his name. And this is underlined. So this is an important line that he really wants to nail home. But he's repeating what we just saw. We just saw that he didn't know his name, and now he's telling us that he doesn't know his name. So this is tell, not show, but it's also making it very obvious. Like he wants to make sure, pound it home, that he doesn't know his name. His heart starts to pound, and that's in all caps. This is something that can't be shot. You can't show his heart pounding, but you can show the actor can play it, that his heart's pounding. And if you wanted to add sound design of the, you could do that as well. So it's put in here. The voice comes back on board and it says, state your name. So he's giving him another chance. Grace, struggling. So the parenthetical here is struggling, still trying to figure it out. He goes, I ... I don't know. So this time he's clearly using the I as sort of a trailing off. At least that's what I think it to mean, rather than the dash, which is the quick interruption. This is the more traditional construct of what we saw previously, rather than the it's ... then it's ... His eyes dart back down the corridor. Searching for any clue, he makes his way back to the room where he awoke. Again, we've taken one sentence, we broke it into two. His eyes dart back down the corridor, period. Searching for any clue, period. Really, that's one sentence that could be handled with a comma. It's still dark. He can barely make out his own med bay, but as he crosses, he notices on the other side of the room, double dash, so we know we're about to get something important, 2 more medical bays with dark silhouettes of bodies in them. Again, this is breaking up. He broke up one sentence into two. 2 more medical bays, period, with the dark silhouettes of bodies in them, period. Then we get another big reveal. This doesn't have the double dash or the ... to prepare us. It just hits us with it. Underlined again. There are other people here. So he's not alone on the ship. Grace hurries over the first bed. He grabs the body. Wake up! And gasps when he sees double dash. So we have several double dashes in this sentence. He grabs the body, double dash, wake up. So this is an aside. And then back to the action and gasp. And we see double dash. So this is setting us up for another big reveal. She's dead. All caps. So this beautiful little sentence tells us 2 things. That the person is dead and the person is a woman by using that pronoun. And looks like she's been dead for quite some time. So again, and I'm going to quit saying it, but just so you see that you can take one sentence, put it into 2 or 3. This is his writing style. This is his voice. This is how he uses his voice for emphasis. Her mummified features almost seem peaceful in repose. This sentence is doing some things. He hedges sometimes, quite a bit actually. Almost seems as a hedge, but I think it's more his voice. Grace backs away, looks at the other bunk in apprehension, finds, all caps, another body. Appears to be Mel, also mummified. Grace's hands start to shake. Here's another hedge, starts to, rather than his hands shake. His knees go weak as the situation overwhelms him. Again, things that can't be shot, but we're giving the feeling of what this character's going through, and the actor can play it. As he falls, robotic arms, all caps, extend from the wall to catch him. He cries out, surprise. He fights them off, double dash. Get away, double dash. So he sets that aside inside the sentence and doesn't use italics or anything. He just puts the double dash on each side of it. So it's sort of it's a clause. As he slumps back against the bulkhead. So he fights them off. Get away, as he slumps back against the bulkhead. And then hold on, Grace. So this is a camera move, but it's kind of a tricky place to put it because the robotic arms are holding Grace. So it's like this is a place where someone could bump. Hold on, Grace. Are the arms holding Grace or the camera's holding on Grace? But it's clear. Hold on, Grace, as panic overtakes him. He's alone, in italics. And that's not an aside. It's just wanting us to know this is important. In space. So I said I wouldn't say it again, but I am. So he's alone, period. In space, period. With 2 dead crewmates, period. He doesn't know why. So we did the 3-sentence chop. Voice says, cognition assessment, ... So it's either trailing off or it's continuing, probably continuing. His eyes flash with terror. He doesn't know his own name, cut to. And he uses a lot of cut to for transition throughout the screenplay. I looked, I've read the whole screenplay, but when I started seeing cut to, I went and there are several times where he doesn't. He just goes straight to the next scene heading. So I don't really know why he does it, but I'd say 80% of the time he does it. Internal classroom, that's the scene heading. There's no flashback here like before, just internal classroom. And the action line starts with close on Grace. So this is a camera again. And it's a match cut again, right? Because I think we ended the previous scene with like he was panicking and like in on his face. He's standing at a large whiteboard. So rather than he stands at a large whiteboard, Drew opts for he's standing, meaning he's already been doing it. He's already in action. So this is common and acceptable in screenwriting when you're entering a scene. Then we get dialogue from Grace, and it says, "It all comes down to light. Then," so that's the beat. That's the parenthetical beat. "There's a downward trend in the sun's output. Right now, the sun is 0.01% less bright than it should be. ... Curious that he put it there, but well, I guess because he's going to continue to talk, and he's just breaking up his talking with a little action line here. And it says, he seems to be sketching something complicated with a stylus. Seems to, again, a hedge. But it works because this whole thing is sort of like, what's going on? He doesn't even know his name. Of course, now he's back in the classroom. We're not yet wide enough to see where we are. So we're not yet wide enough to see where we are. It's the we and the us. Then Grace continues with his action line. His dialogue. If it continues to follow the current exponential progression, the sun's output would drop a full % over the next 9 years. He, like I said before, he uses the standard continued. He also uses the standard more at the end of a page if the dialogue to cut the dialogue off. You can go in and turn those off from most software, or you can leave them in. It doesn't matter. He leaves it in, which would be ... catastrophic. So he's saying that dropping the temperature would be catastrophic. And then we get the action line, steps back from board. So we get parenthetical. That is an action. It says step back from board. Could have been a line. And then he continues with obviously. Okay, if you're listening, that was probably confusing. I'll just read the whole thing. If it continues to follow the current exponential progression, the sun's output would drop a full % over the next 9 years, which would be ... catastrophic. Then we got the parenthetical, obviously. Grace turns to face his audience, and we reveal ... So now this is the third way that he is showing us a big reveal. Most common is the double dash. Sometimes it's the ... This time it's a colon. And the reveal is a classroom filled with 6th graders. Classroom and 6th graders are in all caps. Then we have a 3-sentence paragraph here that is an aside to the reader. This is to you. So he's pausing here to tell you something. Here's what it is. Wait, Grace is a 6th grade teacher? How does he end up in outer space? Sit tight. The answer will come in time. But for now, here's what's important, : So he took a little break to nudge you. We're sitting in the theater together, and he's telling you. In here, he also underlines outer space. He uses the double dash as an aside inside the aside, and then he ends it with a colon again. And here's what is important. He says, big reveal, : The big thing that's important is both the classroom and Grace feel well worn and rumpled. Nothing fancy. Double dash. The teachers make do with what they can. So we get some set design information, like a full, almost full page, 6 or 7/8 of a page down from the beginning of the scene, to tell us that the classroom is well worn and rumpled, so that the set designers have an idea of how to design this. Nothing fancy. And then he gives us an aside here. The teachers make do with what they can. This is an interesting choice because this has nothing to do with the story whatsoever. This is like a commentary that he wanted. It was important enough to him to add in the story that teachers do what they can with the resources they have. Again, I don't think it has anything at all to do with the story. And I think I remember reading or hearing that he maybe comes from teachers, like one of his parents may be a teacher or something. So that was important to him. A girl Tran. So here, the Tran is in parentheses, which is a unique choice. So a girl, Tran, this is a character, all caps, near the front of the classroom raises her hand, and then we get dialogue from Tran. So in this case, he decided to tell us who this person is, and before the dialogue, as you'll see going forward, he doesn't do that. Tran says, "Are you sure you're supposed to be teaching us this?" And then action line, the look on Grace's face says, "Nope, I'm not." And I can see Ryan Gosling doing that. But this is a new choice. The "nope, I'm not" is in quotation marks rather than italics, rather than being set aside with the double dashes. So he is using all types of devices in his screenplay. And so you've probably been told, be very, whatever you do, be very consistent. He is not being consistent with what he does, but it's working. I mean, it's not confusing in any way. Grace says, "We're encouraged to tie current events into our curriculum here at West Grover Cleveland Elementary." And Tran says, "Principal Martyr is going to come sit in on class again." So that's said that's like a punishment of some sort. So this Tran girl is witty and smart. And Grace says, "Well, we won't if you don't narc me out, Tran. And besides, this is science, technically." And he underlines Tran in the dialogue, and also is, which is old school. If you wanted a certain word to have emphasis in the dialogue, you underline it. Don't see that as much as we used to. He does it here. And as we roll along, we get the sense Grace treats his students more like adults than sixth graders. So we get the we roll along, we get the we sees quite a bit. And again, this is telling us what he just showed us. He just showed us that he has this sort of chummy, fun relationship with his students, but he felt like he wanted to also put that as an action line. And then it goes down to the next one, which is underlined. It says, "Which is exactly why they love him." Underlined. So that's super important. Wants us to know that he's a very lovable teacher. Max, who's that? We don't know. We have dialogue from him. Max says, "Why is the sun getting dimmer?" So we could assume this is a student. Grace nods. "Good question, Max." This is in the action line. This is like his expression, and it is in italics. He heads back to the board, double dash. And he writes on the board. And Grace says, "So 2 years ago, scientists noticed an infrared line appear in our solar system. It's called the..." And then he's interrupted, so we get double dash. "And Silas," we don't know who Silas is either, but he's a student. So this is what I was talking about earlier, how he is now introducing characters giving us character dialogue without previously introducing them. In this setting, it's totally fine, but at least these kids have names. They'll appreciate that on their IMDb profile. Plus, there's multiple of them, so you have to, like, whose line's who? I mean, you could say student 2, student 3, but that's pretty lame. Silas says, "Petrova line!" Exclamation point. So, exclamation points in screenplays, they've been told don't do it. I think there's a place for it, for sure, especially when you have something very important to say. So it's not like he screamed this, I don't think. But the exclamation mark in this case tells us that this is common knowledge. Like all the kids, like he said it in a way like very confidently, like, yes, we know this. So as we're starting to come on board in this world and figure out what's going on, we can say, oh, everybody knows about the Petrova line. It's not something new. Then Grace says, "I'm not giving you points for that, Silas. It's written right here on the board." And he underlines right here. Again, that's that old school emphasis. And then we go to a long block of dialogue, and I'm getting the impression he didn't want that, so he breaks it up with a quick action line that is really kind of a throwaway action line, but it says, "And so it is, along with a very helpful diagram." And that really doesn't give us much information other than, I guess, he's doing stuff on the board, which we already knew. But we're going to get an expo dump here, okay? And I'm just going to run through it. But the expo dump is smart because we're letting kids tell us, which is automatically interesting. Also, you're going to get it from multiple characters. This is the old CSI and Law and Order trick. I mean, they're not the ones that invented it, but when you watch one of those episodes, remember it's like someone asks a question and 3 people answer it. They're just like machine gun style. And so you got a lot of information, but you got it from 3 different people, so you don't feel like you just had to sit there and listen to one person go on and on. Grace. The Petrova line appears. The sun starts getting dimmer. One theory is an organism is affecting the sun somehow. Think of it like ... Algae, right? Ivy. She's a new character. Isn't algae an internal part of our planetary biome? Grace. It's not a perfect metaphor. Parenthetical points to the Petrova line. This could be bad algae. Bad space algae. Max. Bad space algae is eating the sun? ? So he's setting us up again. Grace. We don't know yet. It's a theory, but Earth is getting slightly less sunlight, and over time that's ... catastrophic. Soledad, a new student. What does that mean? Grace. Searches is the parenthetical. Involving great damage or suffering. So he's being his fun, jovial teacher self, defining what catastrophic means, but he's slipping here because he's saying things that might scare the kids. And so Soledad and Max, dual dialogues, first time we see this in the screenplay. Soledad says, not the word ... Max says suffering. I don't think that they simultaneously said this, talking over each other. I think they just said it quickly back to back as one thing. So he made the choice here to do that. Grace says, it's like climate change. All of the problems we've been having from climate change, ... So he's interrupted by Ivy, who says, my dad says that that's not real. And then we get a long chunk of dialogue from Grace. And we get some comic break here because we've been talking about pretty serious stuff. And you can only talk about serious science for so long until you have to do something funny. We've been set up here with Ivy's dad, who doesn't think climate change is real. And Grace says, we all get your dad's emails, yes, but it's real. So that was our little comic break. And it happened because CO2 emissions changed Earth's temperature 1.5 degrees, underlined. But with this, ... goes back to the board, Earth could cool 10 to 15 degrees in the next 30 years. And he's underlining all these numbers because that's what he wants the actor to put emphasis on. Then, that's the parenthetical, which would mean our crops would die, which means our food chain would collapse, which means a significant portion of our population would be not here anymore. This is what we would call lowest common denominator. So he started off with some pretty hard science, then he softened it, and then now he's hitting us with, if you didn't get all that or it bored you, this is what you really need to know. That the food chain's going to run out, crops are going to die, and we're all going to die. This is bad. To the action line. There's an awkward silence as the grim reality Grace is describing settles over the students. Grace stares at their frightened faces, realizes he's overstepped. So now he's figured out, okay, I probably shouldn't have been saying all this. Pillar, another student who hasn't spoken yet, parenthetical, quietly, how are they going to stop it? So we're setting us up with some more exposition. So now we know the problem. Now we're about to figure out how they're going to stop it. Everyone turns to look at Pillar at the back of the room. So apparently this kid doesn't speak a lot. It's a big deal that he's talking. That's how I would read it. Pillar says, how are they going to stop the sun from dying? So now we had the lowest common denominator for that set of information. Now we have another lowest common denominator, which is really the whole thesis. Like, how are they going to stop the sun from dying? This is the thesis of the whole screenplay, of the whole story. And we get it from Pillar. Thank you, Pillar. Grace does his best to be reassuring. That's ... what they're working on right now. Pillar says, who? Hold on, Grace. So back to the camera movement. So when Pillar asks him a question, we're just going to stick on Grace here and momentarily at a loss because the truth is, ... he's scared too. And he underlines, he's scared too. So when we look at mechanics and style of the screenplay, this is an interesting one to study because he uses it all. And he doesn't really always use it consistently. But you can see in here, if you pick and choose different ways that you can do things. All right, the final piece of dialogue from this scene after he realizes he's scared too, or we realize he's scared too, Pillar says, "Who's they?" So remember, he's like, that's what they're working on, and Pillar says, "Who's they?" And then we cut to the ship. Interior ship. So this is a very broad action line. The ship, I mean, my goodness, 85% of this movie is going to be in the ship. Where in the ship? At this point, though, it doesn't really matter. We just need to know we're not in the classroom anymore. Now, the first AD and others who are scheduling shoots may like a scene heading with more information so they can figure that out. But as a read, it doesn't matter. And I don't really know if this was what script this was. It does have asterisks along the side, which means it is a revised script. But we don't know which revision. And the scenes aren't numbered, so definitely not to that stage. So it wasn't the first script. That's all we do know. Okay, inside the ship here. Close on Grace. So again, he likes that a lot, being close on Grace. As a glimmer of recognition flickers across his face. He struggles to his feet, crosses back to the hatch. Those are 2 paragraphs. The overhead voice in the ship again says, "To open the hatch, state your name." So this is clever because we're playing off the previous scene where the ending question is, "Who's they?" And then we go back on the ship and Grace doesn't even know who he is. Okay, but now he's figured it out because of this flashback with the school. So he now has an inkling of who he is. So the ship says, to open this hatch, state your name. And he says, Raylan Grace. Okay, now this is something that I think people who are writing screenplays overlook sometimes. And it's important to pay attention to. You put in your screenplay, you introduce a character and you say who they are. You have dialogue throughout the screenplay and you have the dialogue tags that say who they are. But unless someone says their name or they say their name or it's written somewhere on screen, the viewer has no idea what this person's name is. So at some point in the screenplay, it's good to go back and be like, figure out, make sure that this person's name was said at some point and where it was said. Here it's very strategic because if you think about it, the most common place to reveal his name would have been in the classroom where one of the students would have said, Mr. Grace, right? But Drew Goddard is clever here to not let us know his name until Grace knows his own name. So we're finding it out at the same time as the character. So the character has his brain's starting to come online a little bit, and he says, I am Raylan Grace. And I love this, that the character's name is his last name. It's very masculine, very sporty. And this guy's going to save the whole world, the whole universe. So that's awesome. Of course, I think, that comes from the book. But at any rate, the hatch swings open. Grace steps into the rest of the ship. So the rest of the ship is in all caps. He finds another room up ahead, : So this is to tell us the next action line is important. Again, it's one of 3 ways he's done it so far. It looks to be some sort of laboratory. Laboratory is in all caps. There's a lab table, all caps, mounted to the floor. Equipment, all caps, lines the walls. So another choice would be to not reveal the laboratory, but just describe it and let the reader realize what it is. But Drew errs on the side of clarity and understanding over and over again. So this is his jam. This is how he does it. Grace's stares it says Grace's stare. I think it's supposed to be Grace stares at the room for a moment. So that's when you see that in a screenplay, it's usually a some sort of modification that the subject-verb agreement wasn't changed when they changed the sentence. Grace stares at the room for a moment, ... as though it's triggering a memory. This place seems familiar, ... So this place seems familiar is in italics, so that's an aside. He's still shaky, unsure. He steps carefully toward the front of the ship. There's a ladder at the end of the passage. A ladder is in all caps, ... And then we go to another scene here, this interior cockpit. So we're going to the cockpit. But here's an interesting choice. The first action line of this scene is Grace climbs up into the cockpit. So really the climbing took place in the other setting, the other scene. So you could have put that in the previous scene, then ... to the cockpit. But he didn't do that. Every surface covered with touch screens and computer monitors. So again, remember I talked about he likes to start scenes with declarations, so rather than description. Like, every surface covered with touch screens and computer monitors. That's what he says. Leaving out some of the verbs. The technology feels advanced yet familiar. Grace sits down in the pilot seat. The voice kicks in and says, "Pilot detected." Grace says, "Hello, can anyone hear me?" Then, that's the beat, the pause, parenthetical. I don't know what's happening. So here the stutter, the I uses the dash, which he cuts himself off rather than the ... Previously he was doing the ... because I don't think those lines were trailing because a lot was going on. There's silence. Then the voice, angular anomaly. And Grace says, "I don't understand." Grace leans forward, tries to make sense of the digital information screen across the various screens. I'm sorry, let me reread that. Grace leans forward, tries to make sense of the digital information streaming across the various screens. And here he uses a splice, where previously he was using periods and sharing subjects with the previous sentence, which is pretty common in screenwriting. It's what I do quite a bit. But here he just puts it all together with a comma. Your English teacher would call that a comma splice. And I pointed out just because this is the only time I've seen it in his writing. But he does it. And Grace says, "What's ..." So he's cut off by the voice who says angular anomaly. And the action line, a blinking red shape draws Grace's attention to a map. So red shape is in all caps, maps in all caps. And then we move to page 10, keep going in this scene. Voice says, relative motion error, auto-correction trajectory, the map, all caps again. So it wasn't just the first time we saw the map, he's putting it in all caps again. Readjust the course of a dot labeled Hail Mary. So it's the first time we're seeing this information, and it's also in all caps. Grace taps on the screen, and he says, "That's us?" ? So he's drawing the reader and the viewer in to let us know that he's on something called the Hail Mary. Of course, that's the name of the screenplay. He stares at the map. Hail Mary. The words seem to trigger a memory. He nods. That's us. He traces the guidance lines. So here he again repeats, shows us something, and then he tells us. So he does that quite a bit. So he has the Hail Mary up top, and then again he says it. And that's us is an aside in italics. Grace says, "This is our trajectory." And he says it as a statement, ... The ship seems to be approaching a large circle. Numbers flash across the screen, but one reading stands out to Grace. So he's looking around, he sees something, gets his attention. Grace, this is ... Wait. Grace's heart starts to pound. So the wait here is talking to the director, saying, this is an important moment to milk this. He's looking at this like, wait, play this moment. And his heart starts to pound. Again, something you can't actually show, but the actor can show it. Grace says, "What's our current velocity?" And the voice says, 11,872 kilometers per second. That's fast. Growing up in the States, I don't know much about kilometers. I just spent a lot of time in Canada on a film, and all I know is I was driving like 100 kilometers an hour, and it didn't seem that fast. But I looked it up. 11,000 kilometers is 700 miles per second. That's getting it. And I only know that's super fast because yesterday Artemis 2 took off, and then all the covers, they were saying that it's going about 17,000 miles per hour, not second, which is like 5 miles per second. So this thing's going 7,000 miles per second versus 5 miles per second. It's getting it, right? Which you'd have to get across the galaxy. None of that matters. That was just my commentary. And all you need to know when you read this and when you watch it is, oh, it's going fast. I mean, anything per second, you know, is fast. Grace questions it. He goes, 11,000? That can't be right. So we punch home the point. He looks at the map, sees there's a tab marked live feed, and he puts live feed in quotation marks, most likely because it's on a screen where, you know, a more common choice would be to italicize it, but he's already italicizing it so much, you know, so he opts for the quotation marks. He pushes it. See, suddenly, ... So now he's letting us know this next paragraph's important. It's some sort of reveal. The screens at the front of the cockpit transform as though they've become the classic front glass window. And he makes a unique choice here in the fact that he took that sentence and made it into two, but it wasn't two actions. It was the screens at the front of the cockpit transform, period, as though they're becoming the classic front glass window, period. Grace's breath catches in his throat as he sees the star field, ... and that giant orange sun in the distance. Giant orange sun is in all caps. Grace says, in all, how far are we from Earth? On the readout screen, colon, so he's setting us up with what's on the screen with the colon. Distance designation cycle. It might as well be a different language. So we're seeing all kinds of stuff. Grace is getting impatient right here. So he says, show me. He presses the main screen in quotes again. So he presses that tab again on the map. He's getting the hang of these controls. Half the window is now the map in all caps. So he's trying to show us as a reader that his brain's coming on board again, like I said previously. Grace says, show me our position relative to Earth. And the map starts to widen out. Whoosh, all caps. So this is the first time he's used sound design in all caps here on page 11. And the Hail Mary, again capitalized, becomes tiny, ... And more circles fill the screen. More circles is in all caps. As though we just zoomed out on our galaxy, ... It takes Grace a moment to realize what he's looking at, ... There's another circle marked soul. Another circle's in all caps. Soul here is in quotes. Again, so I'm seeing now that this is what he's doing when it's something on the screen. Soul, and it's on the map, and he flashing across, designating Earth. Let me read that again. There's another circle marked soul on the map, and a flashing cross. Okay. See, I bumped there because when I read cross, I thought like he was moving or something moved, but he just means cross like on the page. And the cross is designating Earth in quotes. And it's nowhere near his current position in italics. Grace's blood goes cold. Again, that's something you can't shoot, but he can act it. His eyes dart to the live feed. Grace, realizing in parenthetical, that's not our sun. He tries to make sense of the map as panic overtakes him once again. And Grace says, where are we? And it's underlined. So then we talked about how he uses underline to show which words the actor needs to really punch. Here he just underlined the whole thing. Like, punch this whole line. This is really important. Where are we? And then we cut to exterior, Hail Mary. So this is the first time that we're seeing outside the ship. And we finally cut outside the ship to see the Hail Mary in all her glory. The construction of this line is in parentheses. So I guess it's like an aside. We finally cut outside the ship to see Hail Mary again in all caps, and in all her glory is also in all caps. Colon, her design feels man-made. So now we're going to get some description of what it looks like. Her design feels man-made, in line with modern space design, yet unique, as though she was built for a singular purpose. Singular purpose is in italics. Her massive fuel tanks, all caps, flare the darkness as she races through space, heading toward that bright new star in the distance. ... So we're about to get another reveal. The next line is ... That is not our sun. So he doubles down again. So it's 3 times now. He showed us on the map it wasn't our sun. Had the actor say it wasn't our sun. And then again, he's going to tell us that it's not our sun. So very important to let us know they're not headed home. Doesn't want the reader to miss that. All right, that is the first 11 pages of Project Hail Mary. Woo, what do you think? I mean, he's an excellent screenwriter for sure, and a lot of interesting things in here that we can learn from and apply to your screenwriting or not apply to your screenwriting. I loved the movie, thought it was great, and I loved the book back in the day. Also a huge fan of The Martian, so I think it's great. Okay, I think this is where I say goodbye. I want to thank you for watching the podcast or listening to the podcast. You can listen to it. It's also on YouTube. You can follow me on my social media if you want. I'm on all that stuff. You can go to my website, see what I'm up to, jeff-barker.com. Also, I got to remind you, my son's movie, Obsession, is coming out May 15th. Theaters all over the world. It's going to be huge. I'm a proud papa. And then I was in Canada for several weeks just recently while he's shooting his next movie, Anything But Ghost, with Cooper Tomlinson and a bunch of other people I can't tell you about. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be so awesome. Can't wait for you to see it. That's going to come out in 2027. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And I'll see you next time.